Hello, and welcome to In a Flash, a flash fiction reading series by Sweetycat Press. I'm Dave Gregory, and today I'll be reading a post-apocalyptic story called Good Boys and Bad Things by N.D. Coley. This piece was originally published in Crack the Spine. And our co-sponsor today is Anonymous. Good Boys and Bad Things. If it were not for the curls of smoke drifting from the cottage, the boy would have supposed it to be another rock, much like the gray ones that littered the mountaintop. The rocks were surrounded by evergreens, and the evergreens were covered in snow. A goat path snaked its way about them, jaggedly, as if carved by accident. It was a brave thing to keep smoke going, especially from high ground, because smoke was followed by fire, and fire could be a sign of food. The boy took off his hat. He wiped a thin film of sweat from his forehead and studied the cottage. He was hungry. The woodlands had not seen a harvest for 3 years. 3 years of cold and hunger. At first, it was civil. Neighbors divided up their food and met in their village halls. The young and old and sick and healthy were cared for. But there was a second famine, and a third. And the disease had picked apart the animals, and the buzzards picked apart the game, and the cold picked apart the buzzards. Neighbors robbed neighbors. There were courts for a time, and the courts turned into night raids, and the raids turned into wars. And there were rumors, as the rations ran out, that the people were feasting upon each other, roasting their own kin over open flames, mashing them in their teeth for a chance at just one more day. The boy, who once had a name, watched the world around him freeze up and shrivel up and eat itself up. And, having no family of his own and no life of his own, save a job for a farmer who cursed the boy's every move, was indifferent to the idea of famine. Hunger had taken his parents long ago, when he was too young to know about starvation. There was chatter that he had a sister, somewhere. But if she were alive, it was certain that she was huddled up in a pile of blankets, hoping that when death came, it would come quickly. He imagined what she looked like. She was thin, but pretty, with curled blonde hair and bright blue eyes. And she was a nice sister. And she never would have eaten another person. The boy named her Isabel, and they talked often. She told him when to hide or climb a tree, or find a cave and cover his tracks and save himself from people who would just as easily eat little boys. She was funny, too, and told him such grand jokes that he had to bite his lip to avoid laughing and giving himself away. She teased him for eating moss and tree bark and frozen, rotted bits of animals. He had developed something of a palate for buzzard flesh, or so he told her. She didn't believe him. The boy made his way to the top of the path. The cottage was small. The windows were fogged up, though he could see the glow from the fire. And it smelled like something he had not smelled in quite some time. Meat, fresh, roasted, seasoned cuts, perhaps from the hind portions of an animal, the kind that kings would eat when there were such people as kings. He thought that just this once he might kill something for that meat. He knocked on the door. Nothing. He knocked again, and this time the door swung open, slowly. The room had a wooden table, big enough for two, and a fire. and a rug made out of bear skin. A pot hung over the flame. On the other side of the table was a chair. The chair faced away from the table and the fire, and into the darkness. It rocked back and forth. A thin set of hands rested easily on each side. The hands looked like bones. "Hello?" the boy called. The rocking chair stopped, and from behind it he heard the sweet, frail voice of an old woman. "Roland? I had a feeling." Roland gulped. Nobody should have known his name. Everyone who knew his name was dead. He cocked his head to the side. "How do you know my name?" "How could I not? She told me all about you, Roland." "Who?" "She told me how you were a good boy and a brave boy, and how you would never do anything naughty." "Who?" "Why, Isabel, of course." Roland froze. He took a step forward. "Isabel's not real. I made her up." "Of course you did. That's okay. I created you, dear." "You what?" Roland stopped and rubbed his hands together. They felt real. He shuffled his feet and took a breath. He was real. Roland knew it. "I'm real. I'm an orphan boy, and I worked for a farmer, and I dreamed up a sister named Isabel, and she helped me survive the winters." "Tell me," the woman said, sitting still, waving her skeletal hand in slow circles, "who told you that you were an orphan?" He gulped. "Well, the people in the villages." "Oh, I see. Well, maybe they did. I can't control everything, you know." "What?" Roland stepped forward. "How could you have spoken to Isabel? Where is Isabel?" The woman got up. She was fully cloaked, hood and all. She walked over to the fireplace and stirred the pot with a wooden spoon. "I'm afraid," the woman said, glancing at the pot, "that Isabel is busy at the moment, though you did a lovely job imagining her. I haven't had anything so delightful in a long time." Before Roland collapsed to the floor, he heard Isabel whisper into his ear. She giggled, and before the darkness took him, he felt her hand on his shoulder. She told him that it was okay, and that after all, sometimes even good little boys had to do bad things. "It's okay," she said. "It's okay. It's okay. Eat, Roland. Eat." The end. And that was Good Boys and Bad Things by N.D. Coley. The co-sponsor of today's reading remains anonymous. I'm Dave Gregory for Sweetycat Press.